What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to continue the conversation just on mental diets. Hopefully, adding something positive to your mental diet for today. Yeah, we just finished up a pretty intense experience with this turkey. I shared part of the process, in a couple streams ago. I think it's like number 42 or something like that. But I wanted to show you guys like the end result. Trigger warning. Because I'm going to show you guys a picture of the not like the carcass or whatever, but like out of the oven. Yeah, because we had our Thanksgiving yesterday, and it was pretty exciting to get this all going. This is the first time we've ever done anything like this, and probably it's not going to be the last time. And so let me get this screen capture going. Let me just show you guys the turkey. There it is. It was weighed in at over 40 pounds. And it turned out really good. Everybody was happy with the taste and everything. We got a shitload of leftovers. And that whole process has really been enlightening. Really, I feel like it was an entirely positive experience, but it was different than I expected. I expected it to be a lot more just matter of fact, type thing, because I've been eating meat, my whole life, and it's one thing to just go to the supermarket, which is not to say there's anything wrong with that. It's just kind of the mindset about these things, because you see them cut up in pieces at the store, and it's it's easy to disconnect that from that was a breathing, living thing. It had a consciousness, the creation of God, and really, I don't know, just having gone through that whole experience, from raising it, from a turkey that big, from to that end result, has been pretty intense, but at the same time, I have a different perspective, I guess, of nature now, on some level. Not it just almost feels like a level up experience where it's you can't go through something like that and be the exact same as you were before, and looking outside at the squirrels and raccoons even, I used to kind of like raccoons, just because I thought they were cool looking, but having chickens then too, I mean, they're kind of predatory, and so you don't want to have raccoons near your chicken coop, or hawks. It's the same way as looking at hawks, oh, that's an impressive bird, that's pretty cool, but then having one land up in the tree spying on my chickens, is a totally different vibe to it. And it kind of I don't know, there was a time where I was doing a lot of computer producing, just sitting in front of the computer producing, putting shit out on the internet, and experiencing that whole vibe that was really disconnecting from the physical world. And even sometimes maybe with this, it might be well, it is illusionary, and stuff like that, but not to take away from the creation itself. I mean, it's awesome, and there's so many different ways to experience it. Part of the reason people get so annoyed and fed up is just because of the narratives and the propaganda from man's world, but there's a whole nother thing going on, that you can start to tap into once you start dropping these narratives and stop dropping these scripts and programs from culture that are just running unconsciously, that are creating more fear and separation. Whereas you start connecting in God's creation, in the rules, the laws of God. You start seeing, how, nothing is by accident, nothing's a coincidence, and you can take a lot more deeper meaning from things. It's looking at this entire progression with the turkey, because there's a time I let it out 2 times. The first time it was by accident. The second time, I was I didn't know how it was getting out, and this was literally, it was jumping over this piece of luan that I had blocking this door. I thought it was 4 foot. It wouldn't be able to clear it, but it barreled over that damn thing, and not gracefully either. I mean, it just clumsily, if I would have continued to do that, it probably would have injured itself. But Yeah, and it got out and it didn't run away. It stayed, and like looking at that kind of like the whole concept of farming, because that's I feel like a big part of what's going on is consciousness farming. Getting people to operate under these illusions, these scripts of basically a quote unquote future that's not even real, but then having some sort of a agenda to keep moving people in a direction that benefits the farmers. It's one of those things that, like, you can almost, once you start seeing like the predatory side of like creation, I mean, it's easy to look at like a lion or something like that at the zoo, or and be like, oh, what a majestic animal. It's another thing if it was in your backyard while you're like having a cookout. It's like some of these fucking animals, is like a grizzly bear, is like a gigantic animal that will just like eat your fucking stomach while you're alive. It's just like it has no sympathy or compassion for you like that. And a lot of times we project a lot of these emotions and dramas onto like predatory animals, and yeah, but it's not, it doesn't reciprocate. What can though, is like a bond. It's like you can see people that have like bears and stuff as like pets, but there's still like a respect, because humans are like an apex predator, and should be. I mean, look around. I mean, if there's a bunch of bears like roaming around, people could have like the intelligence to figure out how to deal with that situation. Whereas if you're just maybe alone in the woods with some bear spray or something, or a knife or something, and some bear comes barreling over a hill, I mean, you're fucking, what are you gonna do? It's crazy. But like looking at things kind of in that kind of a way, that's one of the things I'm kind of thankful about doing like handyman, like having a handyman business, is it's really like hands on into like nuts and bolts of how things are, like, oh, there's a hole in your wall, and it's easy sometimes, maybe I feel like this in like the truth community, when it's like comes to like the manifesting and like stuff like that, where it's like, oh, just having an ideal state of mind will fix a hole in the wall. It's like, and maybe it would, it's like, all things are possible for God to do, but it's like, we gotta kind of build to that, where it's just like, okay, with my faith, with my, understanding of reality, it's like, yeah, you don't need, some big ordeal. It's just, let's get some mud and we can fix it. It's like, and so looking at things more of like, kind of like black and white. It's like, oh, it's cold, let's make a fire. It's like, oh, it's like this, and it gets you out of a lot of these mental stories of like thinking everything about germ theory, for example. Sometimes, in like in town at least, I can see it being amplified the bigger the area, the more disconnected you kind of get from actual nature, and just that whole kind of ecosystem, where it just feels like, oh, I'm so smart and intellectually superior. I've seen this thing where this, I think he was like a doctor. He was like really it was like a TV show where he's like going to like tribal areas, like of like the Amazon or Papua New Guinea and stuff like that. And I'm really into that kind of stuff. And so he was like, in like the Western world, he'd be like hot shit or whatever. But when he went out there, he couldn't hunt nothing. He couldn't climb trees. He couldn't do anything. I mean, he was almost like a handicap to have him out there with the hunting crew. But like, it's enlightening on some level when you actually are, just getting that close to things, especially, some of these bigger animals, like cows and stuff. I think I mentioned that before. I mean, cows are fucking big. Pigs are gigantic. And a pig will eat a human being without caring. It's like, if for people that don't know that, it's like, there's like some like hog farmers that jokingly say that, like, they could dispose of a body and they never find it. But I don't think that, there's like a joke to it, but there's also not a joke about it. And I was like kind of seeing that same type of thing. Like watching like MMA, I think that's really intense. Someone who's like experienced a lot of pain in my life, watching these, it's one thing to watch somebody fucking just clock somebody. It's another when somebody gets fucking rocked and that had to hurt, and that's part of like I feel like is being part of like hands-on type stuff. I have a pretty good appreciation if a board would fucking clap me in the face hard, what it would feel like, because that's happened numerous times. You know, someone, you know, rings my bell or something like that, and seeing these dudes just getting just rocked and getting back up is so intense for me. It's just like, man, I can't believe you can take a punch like that. It's one thing to give a punch, but you know, every single person at that level can take a punch just as well as they can give one. It's crazy. You know, I was watching one the other day, you know, and like yeah, the guy, he just wouldn't tap. He wouldn't give up, and he was just getting elbowed in the back of his fucking head hard as hell. I mean, just boom, 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 and it's just like, and he wouldn't tap. He just wouldn't. He was just sitting there taking it. It was like a minute and a half of that, of him just getting rocked in his skull. And it's just like, man, you're nuts, man. You got some heart on you that you just won't quit, you know. But then like, and the other end of that too is like, I seen a guy. He's just like, he got almost knocked out, and he got hit really really hard in the side of his like temple or whatever, and he was just like, you could tell he was borderline about to just drop, you know. And like me, you know, it's like wanted to see him just fall and just be done. But then like you see the guy he was fighting with rocked him like that, and immediately while he was basically borderline defenseless, just go to fucking like light him up again. And then the guy, but the thing is like obviously different, you know, from my mentality versus like, yeah, somebody who's like a fighter like that, is like that guy was about unconscious, like knocked unconscious. He got right back into it and just started fighting again. You know, so it's like where I would have probably hesitated and that guy would have got up and just whooped my ass, you know, then, yeah, so it's like projecting your own stories and dramas onto, I don't want to call like fighters like predatory, but you know, if you're a fighter, you know what's going on, you know, right? It's like there's a kind of a nature element to it, you know, where it's two beings just go head to head like that, you know, and this is about as real as it can get. There's not this mental story, there's not these illusions going on. It's just some, and watching that kind of stuff brings you to presence too. I mean, it can, you know, it could also make you unconscious. You know, it just depends on your mindset and whether or not you get you're projecting your own, you want to be a fighter, and you know, it's like part of you is out there, you know. It's like, that's one thing, and that's one thing to be cautious of, as you know, even watching something like that, you're watching something through a screen. It has an influence over your mental diet, you know. And so as long as you're able to not become, you know, in a state of drifting, and then all of a sudden now you're in fear and falling for illusions and things like that, that's what to be kind of mindful about. And even if that happens, you know, it's as quick as remembering it's still now and that God's in control and you don't got to worry about it, you know. And that's a big part of letting this flow just play out, is just trusting that God's bringing the situations, the circumstances, even, you know, it's like, you know, getting out of this like, oh, if I only had mentality, and just trusting more and more so that it's like everything that's happening is like, maybe something in contrast happens where it's like obviously not you know, who you are, and it's like, you know, and you get maybe triggered by it, you know. Try to you know, flip the switch quicker and quicker into a state of gratitude, which is another thing I really want to talk about with Thanksgiving just going down. You know, how important it is to kind of gravitate towards that. You know, it's like it might be hard, you know. It's like, you know, you can hear it's like, you know, gratitude's important and stuff, and you know, it's almost easy to not apply that, you know, just because it's like, it's sometimes when especially in like drifting into the old mind, it's like there's nothing to be even grateful for. It's like I'm feeling just nothing but suffering and torment, and you know, fuck this and fuck that, you know, fuck this person, and you know, that kind of a mindset. But you know, when you are in that kind of an opposite mode, I started doing this thing where you know, realizing that if you're in that state, you know, gratitude is the opposite state, is which your consciousness on some level, that connectivity to God, you know, God's already in that ideal state. If you're in a state of suffering and torment, you gave that contrast, and redefining that as like, God's thankful that you did that so that God could feel the opposite, and then you can be brought to the opposite after going through something like that faster and faster. So it's like if you're experiencing like physical pain in your body, it's easy to want to try to fix it, or just like resist it. But looking at it as like you're already healed, and it's not this future time where you'll be healed. Getting out of this idea of linear time is really important to kind of like shifting to manifesting things fast. Is realizing that the bridge of incidents doesn't always have to play forward into this this quote unquote future that's all imaginary. But it has also retroactive qualities that you can, that it's already like that now. Like you shifted through a series of realities in the past to get to this present now. And that might be a little bit out there, for some people to put on. But for those that have experienced reality shifts, synchronicity, seeing the like the Mandela effect, for example, where it's just like the past that you remember, like, it was a good one. There being an Arctica and an Antarctica world, and now you look at Google and there's no such thing as an Arctica. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, you can look at that, a number of different ways. But, if you're kind of more in kind of the quantum kind of like simulation, holographic projection kind of vibe, linear time, is a construct. It's a construct of watching how space and the stars, how physical reality, is almost like a perfect clock, just function, it's predictable and this and that. And then it's taking this predictableness and then assigning some, well, it's 1221, which, to me is like a, 1, 2, 2, 1, same 12, 21, same number backwards and forwards, so it's like, it's there, but it does, the meaning is between you and God, what that is, so it's like, it's handy, to be like, oh, I'll meet you there at 9:00. But this idea that you're descending, you're, what is it? I'm trying to say denigrating. That's not right. Degrading. As you're just experiencing time, you're just degrading. You're just becoming more and more weak, and you're just becoming more and more feeble, and all this kind of shit. And it's just like, I feel like all of that's a story. I feel like all of that's an illusion. Where it's just like, oh, you're just progressing through this substrate that's not real. It's like once you become more and more present, you maybe can kind of get what I'm talking about. I might be a little bit out there today. Who knows? It's so hard to even tell. How what's normal even anymore to talk about. It's sometimes challenging. And that might have been something like other people. I got a little bit of it. Where it comes to like what's going on with the vaccine and what's going on with these COVID shit, and having a bunch of family, that can be some drama fest. It's like ours was not so much. I don't really care to even try to put my opinion. My family already knows where my mindset is on that. So it's like if you want to talk about it, and part of my stuff is like, well, if you're going to talk about it, I'm not going to agree with an illusion. It's like if we're going to talk about something, we can talk about it if we're trying to search for truth. But if people have no real desire to know the truth, I'm not going to battle with, some fallacy over some other fallacy. It's just like, you can do whatever with that. But like, I think I'm going to balance. I just wanted to kind of bring these little topics up and whatever, kind of share that experience. Hopefully I had just something to listen to for today that, that kind of maybe resets you out of, maybe, oh, what's going on in this country? What's going on in that country? Oh, they're coming for us next. The fear. Fear comes in many forms, all of which are illusions, and so, kind of, and that's the thing about like the truth community that kind of just starts to get annoying. It's just like, okay, well, you see the media is full of shit, yet you're citing sources in the media and still believing that any of it's real. It's like, they've been making shit up, lying about everything for 20 years. They don't get to decide what the narrative is. It's like, so you just constantly reacting to this narrative and being like, well, here's the evidence of why you're wrong, and this is it. And it's like you're falling for their bull. It's like none of it is matters. None of it. It's all fucking fantasy. It's all storyland. It's like, yeah, there might be like some tragedy that happened in some town or some shit that's going down, but to tie it all together in some cohesive little narrative is not real. And to try to debunk it by using more of it, it's almost like quicksand. It's like drawing you into a whole mindset that's illusion. It's like you start to notice that way more as you're farming. You're being around actual nature and fucking not storyland things. Working with your hands, you start brings you more into like what is actually going on versus what is just this narrative, this story of like shit that's mostly horror stories, of shit that's not even going on anywhere near where I live. It's like, yeah, it's like you want to protect your area from this fucking shit getting in there, which is like, something I've been actively doing is like networking and making a, community, just in my area. But like, yeah, I mean, some of this shit, it's like you have to be the one that doesn't comply. It's like Satan will continue to make you his bitch as long as you allow it. It's like you have to say no. You have to choose to obey God instead. And that's your choice. How much, how many times can you hear that? It's like you have to be the one that changes your mind. It's like you have to do it. You have to desire to do that. And a lot of times the only way you start to desire that is by drifting so far into the fucking beast system that you're just sitting there suffering all the time. And it's like even the little wins, the milestones and shit. It's like this is it. I thought there would be some magical, like utopia. This whatever's. But I think I'm gonna bounce. I gotta clean up all the Thanksgiving stuff, put all these big tables and shit away, and taking the rest of the day off, taking the weekend off. Hopefully, get some jobs or something then too. Kind of put that on the back. I get that big job, done, and it's like kind of wrapping up a bunch of little shit. And I didn't really want to start anything new till after the holiday, but now it's like, okay, you hear my furnace running. It's like, let's but we'll worry about that. We'll worry about these things. Even that, it's like trusting more and more so that God's perfectly just unfolding these things, not only in the present moment, but also retroactively in the past. Not so much for this future payday, but like realizing that it's already happened. It's already been achieved. Jesus already did it. It's already happened. So it's like the world's already been judged according to the Bible. And so yeah, it's just like kind of realizing it more and more so that the kingdom of God is here and now, by letting go of the illusions and shit that we push it away with, and so with that being said, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. Might put some guitar music. I've been playing guitar at the church I've been going to, and I kind of not to say, you got to go to church, because I know so many people, myself included, have been like very triggered by religion and like really bad taste in your mouth about that. And then just like the kind of the Pharisee attitude of some religious people. And if you look biblically, I mean, Jesus had the same problem. I mean, he didn't butt heads with criminals and prostitutes, any of these people that society would deem as like the deplorables or some shit. His biggest beef was with religion, and the people that were leading people, away from God, basically, with their fucking bullshit and dramas and everything else. And so, but kind of the way it happened for me is I just kind of put that desire or whatever to God and said, okay, well, I feel like this weird kind of energy about, I feel like on some level I should be going to a church, but I don't, because I feel like a lot of it is just, guilt and shame and fear and everything else, and just not even close to the truth, especially when you see some of the shit going on in the world, and it's just like, when you want me to go to a church, you know, those bridges of incidents, when they come together, I'll do it, but until then, I'm not going to, feel guilt and shame for not going, and I'm just going to continue on, kind of where this path is going anyway. And so kind of what happened was, like, my wife, who at one point didn't even want to go to church with me. I went to a church, for a couple weeks by myself. I got baptized in that church, and that all kind of came together really synchronistically. But she wasn't, having any of that, because she has had some experiences with religion that have been undesirable, and abusive, I would say. And like yeah, and then it just all came together, and then the address of the church had the same, like a number synchronicity, where it's like, okay, well, now, um, playing guitar in their band, and like all this, meeting people, and it's really nice, for community support, just extending that network of actual human beings, and not just personalities through screens that you don't, that you can disengage from whenever. It's important to kind of stay grounded like that, to be around other people, because it's easy to start going down these rabbit holes and end up just mentally just in another thing. And not to say there's anything wrong with that, but the problem is when you're way out there down these rabbit holes, and it's just like everything that you're experiencing is satanic and evil, and just fear and everything, and alone, and just all these kind of things, almost like a satanic Truman Show. And it's just like, try to, especially if you're enlightened and you're conscious, and stuff like that, go to these, wherever God leads you to go, and kind of ask God what to do about it. That's all part of this. Don't listen to people. I mean, listen to God, listen to that small, still voice within you, and obey it. If that keeps coming up, start to learn to trust God over your own past experience, because it's so easy for the old mind to constantly just want to create this Groundhog Day, this little safe prison box, like routine. It's like, oh, from this time to this time I'm going to be doing this, then this, and this, and this, and I don't want any distraction. I want to just relive this same day over and over again where I wasn't in pain. Whereas, like, God will lead you to things and experiences that you never even dreamed of, that are beyond, and it's just like, you don't have to sit there and control things to keep yourself safe. It's like, trust God to keep you safe, and realize that everything's happening right now to benefit you and your state of consciousness, to lift you up and not to push you down. So keep that in mind, and always follow the advice of Jesus. It's like he knew what was going on. And so other than that, thanks for listening, liking, sharing, subscribing. Appreciate your spiritual support and your financial support. Thank you for that. And until the next now, God bless.